So currently, as you can see, we have our tab opened in expanded state. Now we want to minimize this tab. So we will remove this text view, and instead of this text view, we will add one button over here named minimized, and when user clicks on that button, our tab gets minimized. So this functionality we are going to create in this video. So our web row contains this text view, so we'll add material button instead of text view, and we will set this text to minimize. Then we will give it id minimize button, and we will reference our minimize button in view holder, since this is view of single tab which is represented by this view holder class. So we will reference this material button in our view holder constructor using final material button minimize button is equal to, we have item view, in that we will find view by id r.id dot minimize button, and we will set minimize button dot set on click listener. Then we will create new on click listener. Here we will minimize our tab. So for that we will create new function in our custom horizontal manager. So we will create a function, a package level function void minimal deselect item, and we will create one interface called setter callback, and it will have void set now function, which will be get called when our functionality is finished its working. So it will accept setter callback as parameter. So we will set scrolling is equal to true, no more right is equal to false, no more left is equal to false, and we will set current fs view is equal to null, since we want to minimize our expanded item or tab. Then we will create try finally block. So in the try block we will detach and scrap attached views, and we will pass over here recycler. Then we will create a functional level variables integer previous pose. So previous view pose is current active pose -1. Then we will create integer next pose. So next pose will be current active pose +1. So as you can see, when we open a empty tab in expanded state, we set current active position of that tab here in the open block pop-up of horizontal. So now we will check if next pose is less than item count, then we'll add one next item. So final view is equal to, here recycler dot get view for position, and we will pass next pose. Since we want to add one next item, then we will set view dot set scale x to minimize scale. So our minimize scale is 0.60f. Similarly, we will set scale y to minimize scale also. Then we will set view dot set translation x. Since it is next view, we will use next translation, which is stored in next trans variable. And then we will add this view using add view. Then we will measure child using measure child. Then we will pass view, and we will use 0 as width and 0 for height. Then layout decorated, we will pass view, we will use 0 as left 0 as top, width as right, and height as bottom. So similarly, we will add one previous view. So for that, we will check if previous pose is greater than or equal to 0, since it is starting from 0, because recycler view has view holders list 0 indexed, 0 based indexed, because recycler view has items with 0 index starting on. That means that the first item has position or index 0. Hence we will check if previous pose is greater than or equal to 0. Then we will add one previous item. So we will get our view by passing previous position. Then we will set its translation next to previous translation. And for all other remaining views, we will create for block. We will use integer I is equal to previous pose minus 1. Then we will set counter is equal to minus 2. Then I is greater than or equal to 0. I minus minus, counter minus minus. So it will start from previous position minus 1 and it will go till the first view. So in this for block, first of all we will get view for the ith position using this statement. Then we will set translation x to the value written by get view translation function. So we will create this function. It will be private float and it will take integer position and it will return position into width and it will subtract position into differ. So if width is 100 and position is 1, then it will multiply that 100 with 1, so 100. And if differ is 36 and position is 1, it will remove 36 and return 64. If position is 2, then 2 into 100, that is 200, and 2 into 36, that is 72. So 200 minus 72, so it will return 128 as translation. So we will use this function to get view translation. So here we will use this function and get view translation and we will pass counter. Then we will set translation x and y, scale x and scale y to minimize scale. Then we will add this view, we will measure it and we will set layout decorated to these values. Then after that we will detach and scrap this view so that our scrolling performance will not get impacted because of this view. So we will detach and scrap this view. So this will add previous views which are present before the previous view, which we recently added in this code. So now we want to add next views which are present after the next position view. So for adding those next views, we will create one more for block. We will use integer I is equal to next pose plus 1, because we already added this next pose view. Then we will use counter is equal to 2 because we already added the next view. with the next translation. So we will multiply this counter with translation. Then we will use I is less than item count condition, and then we will increment our I, and we will increment our counter using I++ and counter++. Then we will get our view. We will get translation for it. We will set it scale x, scale y, and add that view. Then we will use the similar code for measuring child, its layout, decoration, and then we will detach and scrap that view. And in the finally block, we will animate our currently expanded tab to minimize state. Hence we will write final view is equal to here recycler dot get view for position, and we have currently active tab with current active position. Hence we will use this current active position to get our currently expanded active tab. Then we will first of all add this view. Then we will measure child view, and we will use 0 and 0 as width and height. Then we will use similar layout decorated code. Then we will set card view elevation of this view. Then we will write view dot animate, and we want to animate its scale x to minimize scale. We want to animate its scale y to minimize scale, and we want to set its translation x to 0f. We want to set duration to 175, and when it finishes its animation, we will supply with end action runnable, new runnable. So after animation is finished, we will show our buttons. Then we will call callback dot set now. This callback is our setter callback, which we supplied to minimal deselect item. Then we will set scroll unlocked to true, so that scrolling will be unlocked. Then we will set current active position is equal to -1, since we do not have any tab in expanded state. And we will set scrolling to false to indicate that we are done with our deselect functionality, and we will start our animation using start function. So this is how we create minimal deselect item with animated. So this is how we create minimal deselect item functionality. Now there is one more need. We need to create this set CV elevation function in our class. So we will create private void set CV elevation, and it will accept view as parameter. So our view will contain our custom MCV. So we will find that using view dot find view by id r dot id dot mtcv. Then we will set material card view dot set card elevation, and by default we use 2 as elevation for all other types other than expanded tab, or for the tab which is opening in the preview state by user. Then we will set material card view dot set radius to 6, so it will set card corner radius to 6. So now in our minimize button, we will call custom horizontal manager dot minimal deselect item new setter callback, and in the set now function we will create a new toast. We'll pass context I am minimized. So this toast will be visible when our animation is finished. So we will try this functionality on our emulator. Now as you can see, we can minimize our tab and our toast is visible. So in the next video we will create functionality for expanding this minimized tab.